What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I am Necrotic, and I have another collection update for you. This will conclude, finally, all the stuff I got in Florida. Again, I found a ton of underground, obscure stuff, and I have been just listing the shit out of it. Mostly because we don't have a lot of new releases right now. January's kind of slow, so it gave me time to really just catch up on all this stuff. So, let's get into it. First, we're going to start off with a pair from Oathbreaker. Here we have their first album, Maelstrom, and then their second album, Eros, Anteros. This is a blackened hardcore slash post-metal band from Belgium, part of the Church of Ra with Amen-Ra and Hessian and a number of other bands I can't think of right now. These are both really good albums, but for different reasons. I really like this one because it is raw, it is fast, very hardcore oriented. Lots of Converge worship in here, but some cool Blackened moments, and even some really awesome, like almost high on fire like riffs. This is an absolute high energy banger, killer across the board. This one has a lot of the same, but this one starts bringing in more Blackened elements and some more post-metal elements. There are two tracks on here that are considerably longer than the other tracks. One is 9 minutes, one is over 11 minutes, and they're both slower, more atmosphere building, definitely more tension and release sort of things. Notably different, and it definitely carried on to the last album, Rhea, which they broke up after that, but they've recently reformed, so they might record again. But if you have a chance, jam either one of these. They both came out on Death Wish, and yeah, if you're familiar with Death Wish Records, you know what they're about. Scathing, hardcore-oriented stuff. Really good. Check them both out. Obsidian Kingdom, Mantis. I actually got this one in the Metalhead box. I forgot. This was like from a while ago. And this is a really interesting progressive metal band from Barcelona, I believe. This whole album tracks as one song, essentially. Now, it's broken up pretty well, so you can go track by track pretty easily. Some tracks really blend into the other at a point where it's kind of hard to go just listening track to track. You have to kind of listen to the whole album to get the real thing on here. But it kind of has that Between the Buried and Me quality, except they add elements of black metal and little bits of sludge in there. But you still get that virtuoso playing. There's a lot of really cool lead work on here. Really interesting stuff. Lots of layering, lots of instrumentation. I really dig this one. I got another one in a different Metalhead box, the Aces of Metal box, and I really didn't care for that album. This one I liked a lot better. I believe they put out something fairly recent. It might have been last year. So I might have to check that one out too. If it's anything like this, I'll probably like it. Definitely check it out. It's good stuff. Man Gloom Meditations in B. This is a sludge metal band from Santa Fe, New Mexico, featuring Aaron Turner, formerly of ISIS, which they were such an incredible post-metal band. This is very raw and very atmospheric, especially in the sense where when it comes down to actual music, there's really not too much. There's a lot of filler and some audio samples, like movie samples, scattered over noise and ambience. And that kind of annoyed me because I kind of just wanted some cool riffs. Like I have Apes of God and their album No, which I absolutely love too. Now granted, there's a fair amount of ambience in those too. There's a lot of just pure heavy nastiness on there too. There's still that on here that's just broken up by a lot of weird interludes in here. It's an interesting listen, especially if you're looking for something that builds a lot of soundscapes and such. Not necessarily for me entirely, but there are moments in here I really dug. Definitely check it out. They're a really cool underground band, though. Orchid, Through the Devil's Doorway. This is, I believe, their first EP. These guys are from San Francisco, and they play straight-up classic doom metal. Very much Black Sabbath, Saint Vitus, Pentagram sort of style. Very riffy, very catchy, too. Lots of really good riffs on here, lots of Sabbath worship. The vocals are pretty exceptional on here. I think they're pretty good. They're very melodic, but they're still kind of raspy and gruff, which I really appreciate. Sometimes I don't want them to sound too polished. It almost has that kind of classic proto-doom sound, like a band like Witchfighter in general, too. Pretty interesting stuff. I have two of their other albums, and I really dig these guys. I don't know what happened to them. They kind of haven't put out an album in a while, but maybe they're just taking a break or whatever, or finding a label. But I'd like to hear more from Orchid, because these guys are really good. Definitely check them out. Pathogen, Forged in the Crucible of Death. This is raw death metal from the Philippines. So this came out on Old Temple Records, which I am not familiar with. This is very, very raw sounding. Lots of incantation and autopsy worship. There's definitely some punk undertones. You hear a lot of D beat on here. Recording is really, really raw. Like, honestly, it sounds more like a fairly polished demo than an actual full-length release. Guitar tone has a lot of extra grit on here. I really like the vocals. The vocals actually remind me of David Vincent way back in the early days of Morbid Angel. Lots of cool dissonant melodies on here too. I really thought were good. This is a really solid underground band, and I definitely like to check out more by them. It just seems as though their stuff's kind of hard to find. So yeah, this actually has, I guess, a limited number on here. I just noticed this is number 752 out of, well, it doesn't say, but it's number 752, and I got it. But yeah, really good stuff. Definitely check these guys out, especially if you like your death metal really raw. Runemajick Envenom. This is a death doom band from Sweden. And I guess originally they were just a straight up death metal band, but they shifted to death doom instead, and they're pretty good at it. The songs in here are very long. A good chunk of them are over the 10-minute mark. And sometimes they take a little long getting to where they're going, but for the most part, this is pretty solid. Good, doomy, sludgy riffs on here. Lots of really cool melodies, and there's some cool vocal layering on here, like almost like gang vocals in spots. But it really kind of helps accentuate moments in there. Pretty solid listen. Very long, though. Sometimes, like I said, the songs run out a little too long, at least past my limit. But overall, if you're looking for some good death doom, I'd definitely check these guys out. I definitely want to find more from Runemajick. I heard they put out an album in 2018 that was really good. It might have been last year, I'm not really sure. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's really good shit. Okay, so this is a double album. This is a reissue of Sacrilege's first two albums, I think only two albums actually, Lost in the Beauty You Slay and The Fifth Season. These came out in 96 and 97, and this reissue was in 2002. Now, this band actually features Daniel Svensson, who used to be the drummer for In Flames for a long period of time, and it features him on drums, synths, and vocals on this. And honestly, he's a solid vocalist. A lot of this I found really comparable to, well, early In Flames, and a lot of hypocrisy. In fact, his range is kind of similar to Peter Tägtgren. Lots of just really cool melodic death metal on here. Like, this screams that classic early 90s era where this was coming from. And the two albums are definitely different. Lost in the Beauty You Slay is definitely more mid-tempo, a little bit more folky in spots in terms of like the lead melodies. The Fifth Season is faster, more aggressive, fewer lower growls. Most of the screams are in a higher register, and I think it has the more straightforward at the gates feel to it, like definitely some Slaughter of the Soul kind of feel, or like the final chapter by Hypocrisy. Really good. If you can find this, definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of old school melodic death metal. This is really excellent stuff. Check it out. St. Vitus. This is a reissue of Hallow's Victim and The Walking Dead. Hallow's Victim being their second album and The Walking Dead being their first EP, I believe. This is pretty solid classic doom metal. Really dig the overall sound of this. I mean, I was pretty familiar with St. Vitus' old sound, and this pretty much just echoes it. Lots of Black Sabbath riffs, tons of cool leads, really good vocals on here. Just solid stuff. And, you know, just kind of found this one. This came out on SST Records in 2009. And I would like to find the original versions of this if I can on CD, but I imagine those are a lot more pricey, and this was pretty cheap in a used bin. But yeah, if you like St. Vitus, if you're definitely familiar with these guys, these are two classic releases of theirs, and they're both really, really good. Definitely check it out. Survive. Self-titled, I believe. It actually has a distinct series of numbers and letters in this, but I can't remember the order, but it just says Survive on the, spine here, so I'm just going to go with that. This is their first full-length, I believe, and I believe this is a re-release on Holodeck Records. I'm not sure if it's the original one, but this is incredible. If you're not familiar with Survive, they are the guys that score Stranger Things, and they do brilliant synthwave music, very dark, brooding synthwave music. Like, it's very similar to John Carpenter's synthy scores for all his movies. Brilliant stuff on here. I especially love the song Floating Cube. That is such a catchy tune. Definitely brings me back to my love of all things 80s and synth, which it's definitely like one of the least metal parts of me, but I grew up on the stuff, and it's always going to be a part of me, and these guys truly echo that. Absolutely love this release. I believe they're supposed to be releasing something new this year. I'm really hopeful they do because I love what they do. It's incredible. Definitely check this out. Awesome stuff. Not metal, but check it out. Okay, and we got a pair here from Tankard. We have Stone Cold Sober. This one came out in 1992. And Disco Destroyer. This came out in 2000. And they're okay. Mostly this one's okay. This one, pretty straight up thrash metal. I think the songs run a little bit long, but plenty good riffs. Plenty of ridiculous songs about zombies, psycho murderers, and of course beer, because beer is always a part of Tankard's lyrical scheme. That's just who they are. They are fiercely German, and they are fiercely beer-loving. This one is kind of bad. First off, this came out in 2000, and it's called Disco Destroyer, and I believe Disco was well fucking dead by then. So it just seems kind of corny to actually call it that. And the songs are just kind of lame. Like, there's a lot of forced humor on here that just doesn't really make it. It doesn't really do anything here. I think the only track I actually ended up liking here was Tankard Roach Motel, which that was still only so-so. But yeah, most of this just screams goofy, but not in that fun, charming way. Like, this is just kind of cringy almost. Still want to get some more of their stuff because I do like what I heard on here for the most part. It's not great, but it's still good. This is just not good. But I still want to check out more by Tankard because this earlier stuff I've heard by them is pretty damn good. And I actually like the Girl Named Cerveza album. I thought that was a pretty decent one. But yeah, check these out. They're decent. I mean, if you like thrash metal, you might find some gems in here. Stick to this one mostly. I don't know about this one. But yeah, check them out. Toxik. Think This. Now, this is a reissue from 1996, I believe, on Displeased Records. This originally came out in 1989 on Roadrunner. And these guys were a technical thrash speed metal band, and they were exceptionally good. And this is a pretty decent release. I still have some issues with kind of their song structure. Like, they really try to be too technical in some spots, like kind of like Watchtower-esque, except I think the vocals, while good, this guy has an impressive range. I think they're a little too over the top, and when it came down to bringing in hooks, like in choruses, sometimes they kind of just missed the mark, and it just got kind of all over the place. Like, the second you really started getting into a spot, they'd switch it up and then not return to a spot. And the good thing about riffs is the repetition of them. They get stuck in your head. Lots of really, really good lead work on here. I mean, there's some seriously awesome stuff on here. Was a little thrown off by the power ballad on here, which I can't remember which track it was, but kind of screamed as a grab for radio play. But, you know, what can you do? I mean, you know, you want to get on the radio back in 1989, I guess. But all in all, pretty decent release. Definitely an interesting one. As far as, like, guitar play, if you're big on wicked, shreddy, awesome guitar leads, definitely check this release out. It's pretty solid there. Might come off as a little disjointed to some, but I think there's some really good stuff on here worth merit. Check it out. Alright, we got another pair here from Trapthem. We have their first full-length Sleepwell Deconstructor and their 2010 EP Filth Rations. This is way, way more raw than a lot of their other stuff, I think. This is just wild and insane, like crust-punk, hardcore, grindcore. It is nasty, it is in your face, and it is a little uneven. These guys just kind of freak out on this one, which is awesome. If you're looking for something that just sounds like Converge on meth, it's pretty fucking wild. Real nasty sounding in terms of recording on it. It's just disgusting. This, slightly more subdued, but trust me, it's Trapthem. It's heavier than fuck. I like this one. It's a touch more groove, touch more memorable riffs on here. Production sounds more full. Really dig this EP, and I honestly dig all their albums. Like, they're all fucking good. And unfortunately, looking up information on these guys, I didn't know they broke up in 2017, so that was kind of a huge bummer. I would love to see Trapthem get back together. I loved their last album. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and I was really hoping they keep going, but oh well. But yeah, check out these releases. They're both just nastier than hell. If you love hardcore, grindcore, death metal, any of that shit, this is nasty. Check it out. Trouble, Manic Frustration. this was one of their big shifts in sound. Trouble started off as more of a doom band. I have their original first album, and it's absolutely killer. It definitely was one of the more noted releases I think that came out in terms of doom metal in the US. And this one saw them shift over to more stoner rock, almost just kind of straightforward rock and roll. But it was really good. I didn't know that this was actually produced by Rick Rubin, and it definitely has that Rick Rubin sound. The production sounds very organic, very full. Lots of memorable riffs on here. Lots of really good hooks. And I gotta say, Eric Wagner's vocal performance in here is really solid. He definitely demonstrates an incredible range on this entire thing. It just doesn't scream very much of a metal album, though. That was kind of my thing there. I never actually really listened to this one until I picked it up. I just knew it was trouble. I was like, oh, I really want to start collecting that discography. And this one's just a bit different. A good different, but not as good as their older stuff, in my opinion. But definitely worth checking out because, honestly, if you just like good heavy rock, it's really solid. Definitely check it out. Voivod, The Outer Limits. Saw this one on the rack, had to pick it up. This is another Voivod album I was missing, and I love this release. This is definitely one of the more accessible releases by them. There's actually kind of some straightforward rock on here, but it's still definitely their odd prog metal, thrash metal, avant-garde, whatever. It's, you know, really solid across the board. There was only one song here I really just didn't get into, which was the Nile song. Jack Luminous. Nearly 18 minutes long and incredible. You definitely hear them channeling Rush in here. Awesome song. Great guitar work. Piggy did an amazing job on this. I love the fact that this is definitely a more melodic release for them, and it's a little bit different than a lot of the stuff that came before it. But yeah, this is just exceptional songwriting. Really good stuff. If you love Voivod, there's a good chance you've already listened to this, but if you've never been exposed to Voivod, not saying you should start here, but this is definitely a stop along the road. Definitely check this one out. It's really good. And finally we have Wit Sorrow, self-titled debut. This is straight up doom metal. It is big, it is sludgy. I love the guitar tone and the bass tone. I love the overall production on this. It feels very warm and fuzzy, but doomy. Like, it just feels like the soul-crushing weight of reality just hammering down on you. That's exactly how a doom album should feel. Now, I do think some of the songs run a little bit long, and generally longer songs aren't much of an issue for me as long as you keep them interesting, and some of these didn't stay interesting enough. The last track, Impaler Tepes, that one had to be probably my favorite track on here. My God, the closing riff on that song is just absolutely immense. If you love doom metal and you love giant, thick, heavy, fuzzy guitars, there's a good chance you'll really dig this. Definitely check it out. It's good shit. Alright, that finally concludes all the shit I got in Florida. Now, of course, I bought more shit when I got back here, and I'll get to those eventually. But we definitely want to get back to the album reviews, going to get back to the discography rankings, a whole bunch of stuff. We plan on being busy as hell this year on this channel, so definitely stay tuned for more cool videos. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.